On May 25th, I wonder if we could manage a rousing cheer for Tumbledown Dick. Okay, it's not much of a nickname, and he wasn't much of a ruler. But the thing is, he knew it. If a man as spectacularly unendowed with gifts as he was, he managed a critical transition of power back to constitutional rule in the United Kingdom, back in 1659. And for that, I think he does deserve to be celebrated. Now, in case you haven't got his trading card or any of that stuff, I should explain that his real name was Richard Cromwell. He was the son of Oliver Cromwell. And as proof of the illegitimacy of the Commonwealth in England and the transparent ruse of Cromwell Sr. refusing the crown when it was offered to him, when he died, a hated man, in 1658, the only thing anybody could think of was to put his son into the no, he's not the king position of Lord Protector. Oliver Cromwell was a heavy. He was a serious character, and by the end of his reign, he was so hated that when the monarchy was restored in 1660, they dug up his corpse, whacked off its head, and hung it in chains. And so Richard Cromwell inherited a difficult position. He was sustained by an army that was widely unpopular. The ideology of the Commonwealth was a radicalism on religious and social matters that was not shared by the populace. The regime was not constitutionally legitimate. It was in debt, all kinds of problems. And it may be said, Richard Cromwell being widely seen as a gormless fool, that perhaps there was nothing that he could have done. Perhaps events simply took their course without him. But let's give the man a little bit of credit. He found himself Lord Protector. He saw all this discontent. He decided that there would be a parliament, that this parliament would be summoned under new and somewhat less unbalanced rules than earlier Commonwealth parliaments. It did have an upper house and so on. And as it drifted in the direction of going back to Britain's ancient constitution, he didn't try to stop it. He didn't sympathize with those who tried to stop it. He let the whole thing unfold. When the time came, he abdicated and he fled the country. He lived incognito in Europe for many years. In fact, he never saw his wife again. She waited loyally for him, but she died before he could return from exile. And as he was making his way around Europe under these various pseudonyms, he once dined with a Bourbon prince who said, well, Oliver Cromwell was something of a rogue, but he was a strong and courageous man, whereas his son Richard was a total poltroon and coxcomb. He said, what has become of that fool? And Cromwell said he was betrayed by those he most trusted and who were most indebted to his father, and left the next day, poor man. He eventually did come back to England. He was, in fact, the longest-lived British head of state until Queen Elizabeth passed him about 5 years ago. And he is by far the longest-lived ex-head of state. He came back to England. He lived out his days peacefully. He wasn't a center of political intrigues. He wasn't a source of trouble. He was a guy who knew that he shouldn't be Lord Protector and that there shouldn't be a Lord Protector, and he let things go back to the way they should have been. He was not seduced by ambition. He did not make a mad lunge for power and force himself to be ousted. It was a curious footnote. He had 9 children. 5 lived to adulthood, but they had no children, so there are no Cromwell pretenders. But there was no Cromwell pretense anyway. Oliver Cromwell? Maybe. Tumbledown Dick? No. He knew his limits, and he acted responsibly to bring an end to a long constitutional crisis in Britain. The Stuart monarchs, Charles II and James II, did their best to start it again, but that wasn't his fault. He was a man who knew his limitations, who was not mad for power, who didn't try and rig the system, who was humble, modest, and had a really awful nickname, and he went quietly. And for that, I think we should cheer loudly. May 25th, let's hear it for good old Tumbledown Dick. Hip, hip, thump. If you're enjoying these commentaries, please visit my website, that's johnrobson.ca, make a monthly pledge to keep me in business, and keep watching The Rebel, keep subscribing to The Rebel for the news and commentary you won't get anywhere else.